you can see from the part of my office that you can see, I'm a fishy person. So not so much an aquaculture person, although I worked in several aquaculture facilities along my career, both in freshwater, in brown trout, also marine with red drums on fish in the Gulf of Mexico. So yeah, I'm definitely a fishy person. And what I would like to talk to you in the next 25 minutes, if I do this all right, is about what is called blue transformation. I'm going to explain to you what do I mean, actually what do United Nations mean when they talk about blue transformation. And well, I like to start some of my interest focus on fisheries, and I teach some lectures, some master's lectures, and in several different universities about this issue, which is biodiversity and ocean ecosystem services, fisheries at the end of the day. And I want to introduce you to this paper that could be familiar to some of you. It's a paper published in 2006 in the journal Science by Boris Worm and a number of colleagues. They are fishery biologists. And their intention with this paper was to review a whole lot of data on the impact of biodiversity and biodiversity loss, particularly on ocean ecosystem services. The paper was harmless, if you want, except for some small detail, which is one of the analyses they did was the impact of biodiversity on the probability of fisheries collapsing. This is what you see in this slide. The point of this was to compare the blue dots or diamonds with the red ones. The red ones indicate places with high biodiversity. The blue ones are places with poor or lower biodiversity. So the red dots are always above in both lines, both trajectories. One is collapses per year. In the x-axis we have year. In the y-axis, in reverse, it's kind of twisted, but in reverse we have a percentage of collapsed taxa, right? Fisheries that collapse, that there are no more fish there. So 0 on top is good conditions. There's no collapses, right? And the top line is the instantaneous one. The one at the bottom is cumulative. So how many fisheries have already collapsed over the years? And that was the point they wanted to make, was only that biodiversity is important and the red dots are above. So there's lower probabilities of collapsing if there's high biodiversity. But when they were working on the materials of these and some of the interpretations of the people that read the paper, they said, give me a minute. I mean, regression is very good. So we could see the R square, well, the R is 0.96. So we could predict what's going to happen in the future. We can extend these lines to the right, to the future. So this goes to 2005, where the paper is 2006. But if you extend this line, it keeps going down. And then the y-axis keeps going down. And what they found is that this line touches 100%, touches the x-axis in 2048. What's the meaning of that? The meaning of that is this. 2048, there will be no more fish in the sea. No more fish to be caught in the sea. So that will be the total collapse of fisheries. And that was not the point of the paper. That was not the intention of the authors. I know some of them. And that was not their intention. But it hit the media, it hit everyone. I mean, conferences, it was everywhere. I mean, this is just a poster they put somewhere. But yeah, the point was scientists predict that by 2048, all wild fish populations will have collapsed. So, well, that's kind of, they were accused of being the prophets of doom, just as being, so this is the catastrophe, we're all gonna die, and so forth. But actually, if you look at data from United Nations, these data are from the Food and Agriculture Administration of the United Nations. Bear with me for a second. This shows global trends in the state of world marine fish stocks from 1975 to 2015, and it's expressed as a percentage of the total. So it could be a little bit misleading if you want, because it doesn't show the changes in totals. 100% is 100%. But still, you see that the blue color part of the graph is what is called biologically sustainable. That part is biologically sustainable. The orange one are the fish stocks that are overfished, that are fished above the sustainability threshold. And that, as we move to the right, as we move approaching the present, the orange gets bigger and bigger. So we are getting more and more fish stocks that are clearly overfished, not according to some environmental groups, not according to Boris Worm and his colleagues in this paper in Science, but according to United Nations. So these are data as good as they get. So maybe there's something to be worried about when we look at, I'm talking about marine fish and marine fisheries. This is from a different paper by Daniel Pauli and colleagues. And this is how captures of fisheries are distributed, different kinds. Not all the fish go to the same place. Not all the fish are caught in the same way with the same methods. Right? So you see several things in this graph. The first one is that from mid 20th century, from 1950s, it increased very quickly. After the Second European War, with all the technology available and the increase in population, improving in life conditions, whatever, we started collecting more and more fish. So the number is going up. At the bottom of the graph, you see two different kinds of fisheries, which are artisanal and subsistence, that they are very low. They increased from the mid 20th century, but not that much. So what is responsible for the more than doubling, tripling the million tons that we catch in the ocean globally is industrial. So it's industrial fisheries what is responsible for this increase. Something which is relevant, and we'll get back to that later, is that from the 90s, the beginning of the 21st century, but definitely from the 90s, it looks like it reached a roof. I mean, it's not. It's if something is decreasing, so we are collecting less fish in the ocean. We are not trying so hard, or there are less fish to be caught. Well, probably both. But those are the messages from this graph. So, well, industrial is the problem. Industrial fisheries are what they are causing the problem, because the massive increase is because of that kind of thing. So the cause is here, but the ones that are having problems are the ones that need the fish for subsistence. These guys over here, which is still a small proportion of the fisheries, but these are the ones that need the nourishment. I mean, they need the proteins. This graph is also from United Nations. This is only 2 years, 2013 and 2015. But this is a world map with the contribution of fish to total animal protein supply. What it shows is that in the different colors show how many grams a day we per capita we eat on average on different countries. So we have countries from the very light blue, less than 2 grams a day, to ourselves, for example, here in Spain, Portugal, Norway, which have more than 10 grams a day on average. But what is more relevant for me is the yellow dots. The yellow dots show the countries where, regardless of the total amount, because the color code is for total amount, but the yellow dots is the percentage. So yellow dots are countries in which more than 20%, over than 20% of the animal protein supply is fish. So these countries really depend on fish. In some places like Japan has a yellow dot, and Norway and Portugal, well, they like fish. We like fish too, but they like fish. But most of the yellow dots are in tropical countries, small countries, poor countries, countries where there is very little or non-agriculture or other forms of producing food. So they really depend on that food, I mean, for their subsistence. So look at the distribution in the South Caribbean, Southeast Asia, most Central Africa. There's where you have all the yellow dots. So these are the ones that we will have problems if we have problems with fish. If we stop having fish available, or maybe we don't enjoy a nice dinner, but for them it's the protein they need. So this is the scenario, right? Then, again, more data from the Food and Agriculture Organization from United Nations. This is where they started thinking about it, because this graph for me shows in blue we have capture, different shades of blue indicate if they are marine waters or inland waters, but just stick to the blue. It shows what I showed you before in a more orange graph. It's stable. We are not increasing the number of the millions of tons of fish that we collect from the sea, but the demand for fish is still increasing from the end of the 20th century until today. This graph goes all the way to 2020. But the change is because we are increasing our aquaculture production. So aquaculture production is what keeps the supply high for the increasing demand. So the demand is increasing, the supply is higher every year, but because of the increase in aquaculture. Something important too is the different shades of red or whatever that color is in aquaculture, because the dark one is aquaculture in inland waters, freshwater or sometimes seawater, but inland waters. The one which is lighter, more pink, it's marine waters, which is slightly smaller. You'll see that. But from this starting point, United Nations or the Food and Agriculture Organization decided that we needed a blue transition. I mean, we are having problems and we need to change things. And their idea is what they call the blue transformation. Transform the way we produce marine food systems, or it's what they call a roadmap for aquatic food systems between 2022 and 2030. So we are halfway through there already. And the objectives of this blue transformation was first to increase, to expand and intensify aquaculture, produce more food through aquaculture. This will result in improvement of food security. It would satisfy the demands, which is always increasing, and trying to distribute the benefits in an equitable way. The second objective is to manage all fisheries. So it's not only we are going to produce fish in aquaculture, but we are also the second point, the second objective is let's start trying to manage fisheries in a better way than we were doing. So that's the second leg that will result in delivering healthier, in having healthier fish stocks and secure the livelihoods of the people that depend on that. They depend on fishing, not only the ones that require the proteins for subsistence, but also people whose job. There are many in Spain and in many other countries, not necessarily poor countries, that their jobs are fishing, right? And then the third point is to try to upgrade. The third objective is try to upgrade value chains, so make the whole system fairer. In terms of people getting the benefits, even the economic benefits, right? So this would go through, to ensure social, economic, and environmental viability. And these three things are important. Let me make a small parenthesis here, that things are viable from the social, economic, and environmental point of view, or the things that are sustainable from these 3 points of view. Something can be sustainable from an economic point of view, but not from an environmental point of view, or vice versa, or from a social, because the social point of view is also important in this idea, in this roadmap, what they call the blue transformation. But the main point, and I think what is more relevant for you guys, or for the whole idea, is that the point is aquaculture, and the point is to increase aquaculture production. It's if possible in a 40%, at least 35% is what they set as their objective by 2030. So that's a massive increase. That's a massive increase in aquaculture, or in production in aquaculture. So that's the idea. That's the blue transformation. Let's have a look at what we are doing, or what have we done all the way to now in terms of aquaculture. These are million tons by taxonomic groups, right? So they are color coded. So in orange you have crustaceans, 9.2% of the slightly under 80 80 million tons, which was, I mean, these data are, the most recent is the 2010. So you can guess that we are probably closer or even above 100 tons, 100 million tons in total, right? 14% is mollusks. The biggest increase and the biggest proportion is fish, not surprisingly. Almost half of the production in aquaculture is fish, and then there's an increasing proportion of algae too, which can be included in aquaculture, even if that's not for food, or most of it is not for food, not for human food, for other reasons, but I mean for other purposes. But still, it approaches 30% of the production in aquaculture. I'm going to review very quickly some of the taxonomic groups. This is a shrimp farm in Texas where I used to live. They are very appreciated there. Crustacean aquaculture is not not as generalized and not as industrialized as others. Of course, there are exceptions, but many of them are small scale facilities. Not like this one, for example. This is a shrimp farm in the Gulf of California in Mexico, which is massive, and it has a massive impact. I mean, it's hard to find a reference to imagine the size of these ponds, but this is pretty big. Something else that is concerning is some of the shrimp farms in the Southeast Asia, where the places where they are installing them are areas where there were mangroves and other coastal ecosystems that are altered, even displacing people, local fishing communities and all that, displacing them for producing shrimp. But still, crustacean aquaculture is small in the bigger scheme of things. It's not a big one. Interesting one is mollusks, which is slightly bigger, and it has many strong points, many good points in order to be an important part of this blue transition or blue transformation. This one is the Vigo estuary in northwest Spain, where it's a very important industry from the point of from all points of view. Has many advantages. It's relatively passive. It's not too aggressive environmentally. There are of course very well developed techniques, but you don't need to. In general, you don't need to feed the animals. The animals feed themselves by filtration. They are hanging from ropes. In other places, they are installing poles, in wood poles. But it's mollusk in general. Mollusk aquaculture is pretty friendly, pretty efficient. It's a positive one, except for this small exception, which is cephalopods. Right now, this picture is from a farm in Hawaii. It's an octopus farm in Hawaii, not very big scale, but still they managed. Recently, biologists found a way to close the cycle of octopus, which up to now was very difficult. There's a larval phase at the first feeding. At the very beginning of the cycle, where it was very difficult to keep them alive and to find food for them. Well, that's been solved, and that opened the door for octopus aquaculture. That is opposite to what's happening with mussels or clams, oysters, things like that, which is low profile if you want. With octopus, the things are getting uglier very quickly, with environmental groups, with animal rights groups. Of course, cephalopods are animals with a very complex, very complex central nervous system, with neurons bigger than the neurons of vertebrates, with very sophisticated behaviors, and with clearly a self-awareness that an oyster or that a mussel don't have, and probably that a fish that fish don't have. So that's creating problems, but let's not focus on the problems, which are relatively small. Fish are the important thing in this idea of increasing aquaculture. It's already happening. I mean, there are more and more fish. Fish can be raised in many different ways, from open water pens like this one, floating cages, recirculation systems like this one, indoors, outdoors. There are all sorts of imaginable techniques to produce fish, and it's actually a relatively old way of securing food, right? Maybe not so much in Europe, but more often in some Asian countries. This is a facility for salmonids, probably rainbow trout, but you see the shapes of the tanks, the conditions are all very different. There's lots of ways of producing fish. And I'm gonna do a little bit of the top 3 fish. Has anyone, I mean, this is not the right scenario, I'm guessing, because everyone has their microphones down, but who can guess what's the #1 fish in terms of millions of tons produced in aquaculture in the world? Anyone has an idea? I see smiles, but probably you already read that before. Anyway, don't sweat it. I'll tell you. This is the #1. The #1 fish. The #1 fish in aquaculture is the grass carp. It's a Chinese species, or at least the aquaculture was developed in China. I'm not going to pronounce the scientific name in Latin. Grass carp is fine enough. 5.8 million tons produced of this fish. I mean, if you think about it, 5.8 million tons, it's a lot of fish. This is 2020, so probably we are producing more today. I mean, last year we produced more than that. It's a very appropriate fish for aquaculture because it's a herbivore, which solves some of the problems of getting protein, all that stuff. And also another very strong point of this fish is that it can be cultured in many different systems. I mean, from extensive, low, almost passive ponds where they find their own food, they find their own conditions, and you take them out from time to time to more intensive systems with more filtrating systems and I mean the whole range of technological or technified aquaculture facilities. #2 is right before I go to #2. The production cycle, it's relatively simple. It's very well developed. For optimal results, it requires a hormone injection to make them mature at the same time and to collect the eggs and then incubate the larvae with the usual rotifers and brine shrimp, small plankton to feed the larvae. But it's very well developed, it's very well established, and well, obviously it works very well. 5.8 million tons a year shows that the system works very well. #2 is another carp, the silver carp, which has an extra strong point. It's almost 5 million tons a year. It's another herbivore like the grass carp, and one advantage is that this can be used in polyculture. They are not territorial, they are not aggressive, so it's easy to keep them mixed with other species. So it brings you lots of possibilities for aquaculture. This kind of fish. The bronze medal in terms of fish for aquaculture is the tilapia, the Nile tilapia, which it's more problematic in terms of how to produce them in captivity. Right now, I'll show you the trend in a second, but right now, in 2020, which is the most recent data I have, there are 4.4 million tons of tilapia. They are omnivorous. They are not herbivores like the two before, but they do fairly well without a lot of animal protein. So they can do very well with plant proteins. And the part of the problem is the reproductive system. From a biology point of view, the reproductive system of tilapias and all these. Forgot the name of the family of this fish. They take care of the juveniles inside the mouth, blah blah blah. They have a very exciting, very sophisticated breeding system, but not exactly convenient from the point of view of aquaculture. So you need to do sex reversal. You need which can be manipulated during the larval period. But anyway, it's working fairly well. So in this table, let me go very quickly. The columns are years, 2000, 2005, every 5 years, 2010, 2015. You have the top 3, grass carp, silver carp, Nile tilapia. I hope you are seeing my mouse, right? You are seeing okay. Numbers, as I said, about almost 6 million here in the grass carp. The Nile tilapia increased a lot in these last 20 years. So it went from 1,000 or 1 million tons to 4.4 in 2020. So tilapia is the one that's growing faster. But you see, the 3 of them, the 3 top fish, are freshwater fish. they are not marine fish, which is not, in some parts of the world, my part of the world, we don't think that much about freshwater aquaculture. That's not absolutely true, because we eat oncorhynchus, rainbow trout and freshwater species. But the top three by far are these, and the subtotal of the 15 major freshwater species, or inland to be more correct, is 39 million tons. Right? If we compare this with marine aquaculture, this is marine aquaculture. The top species is Atlantic salmon, not surprisingly, I think. But look at the numbers. I mean, the number is 2.7. And the total, the subtotal of the 15 major species is 6.4. With the freshwater, we were talking about 39. So 39 total of the top 15 species, only 6.4 for the marine species. Very briefly, I'll go with Atlantic salmon, which is the 8th total, as the number 1 of marine aquaculture fish species, but it's the number 8 in total, 2.7 million tons. And something which is relevant is that it's a carnivore. It's a straight carnivore. It's being worked on with salmonids, with salmon and with other salmonids, trying to change the kind of protein, to try to give them plant-based protein. It's not working so well in terms of the taste of the fish. I mean, there's a lot of research being done, and it's been improvements and all that, but this is an issue. The top three, the carps, I was telling you that even the tilapia, they do very well without animal protein, and that's a very strong point. Something which is also, I mean, had to be developed in terms of technology for aquaculture is that salmon are anadromous. I mean, they have two a cycle with two phases. One is the freshwater phase, in which the eggs are produced, the eggs develop until 1 year. Well, in aquaculture facilities, they reach that faster, but they transfer them to seawater, to floating cages, this kind of infrastructure. But that makes it, I mean, that adds extra complexity to the production cycle of the Atlantic salmon. And well, I said for a second that was carnivore, and let's go back to something similar to what I was showing you at the beginning. So this is not surprising if you want. In this kind of greenish color, we have aquaculture for human consumption. And from 1990 to 2030, this is a projection, it increased. Okay. The orange one is total capture in fisheries. It's stable from the 90s to now. Okay. But there's a third line here, which is this capture fisheries. Sorry. I'm lost. Total capture fisheries for human consumption. So total number of fish that we collect in the sea is the orange line. But this darker line is the ones that are for human consumption. So what's the difference? What's the distance between this blue line and this orange line? Why are we catching all these fish that they are not for human consumption? And that's a big chunk. I mean, it's way over 20 million tons. That's for feeding animals. That's for feeding animals that we are going to eat. So we need that for salmon fisheries. We need anchovies, several other oily fish to produce the food that we are going to give to the salmon. So aquaculture of carnivore fish have that problem. That this is produced in aquaculture, but in order to feed them, we need to go out there. We need to go to the sea and catch those fish. So that's the gap between the orange line, which is total fishery catches, and the dark blue one, which is the ones that are for human consumption. So ideally, it should be the same. We should collect the fish that we are going to eat. Well, no. I know it's not that simple. But yeah, I think these data show the issues with carnivore aquaculture. And just to sum up, probably over time, just summarizing the blue transformation that the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations wants for 2030. 3 objectives: expansion and intensification of aquaculture. That's the main point, the number 1 point. Of course, get better in fishery management, improve, which definitely is correlated. I mean, if we keep the demand with providing more fish, high quality fish from aquaculture facilities, we don't need to catch so many. And then improve the value chains. I mean, make it more fair from the point of view of, I mean, not all countries are the same, not everyone has the same opportunities, the same possibilities. So the whole idea is global. The whole idea is to improve marine food systems with this idea. Well, this is what I had for you today. Thank you very much for listening. I don't know if we have questions now or we wait for the next talk and do all the questions.
Thank you, Alfredo. I think what this program is that we keep with the second talk and then we'll have all together the questions. Thank you very much for this very nice talk. And